The morning sun filtered gently through the lace curtains, casting a golden glow across the bridal suite. Emma couldn't stop smiling, even though her heart raced like a trapped bird. Today was supposed to be perfect, the day she became Mrs. Daniel Lawson. The makeup artist dabbed a final touch of blush on her cheeks, and Emma caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror, radiant, glowing, unstoppable. Everything seemed right. Outside, the wedding hall buzzed with activity. Guests were arriving in sleek cars, their laughter spilling across the manicured gardens. Daniel, dressed in a tailored tuxedo, greeted each arriving guest with a practiced charm that made even Emma's closest friends smile. But something about his eyes lingered oddly, an anxious shadow behind the warm brown. Emma tried to shake off the feeling. Maybe it's just pre-wedding jitters, she told herself. Her maid of honor, Lily, fussed over her veil, giggling nervously. "Emma, you look amazing. Daniel is going to be speechless." Emma smiled faintly. "I hope he's ready for all of this." The chapel was a dream. White roses lined the aisle, candles flickered in elegant holders, and soft music filled the air. Emma felt a thrill as she walked down the aisle, each step bringing her closer to the man she loved. Guests whispered compliments, some even teary-eyed, caught up in the fairy tale moment. Daniel waited at the altar, his expression flawless, but as Emma approached, she noticed a flicker in his gaze, almost a twitch of unease, quickly masked by a smile. He took her hand, squeezing it firmly, as though trying to convey more than words could. Emma felt a pang of something she couldn't name. Is he nervous? Excited? The ceremony proceeded smoothly. Vows were exchanged, rings slid onto fingers, and the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Applause echoed through the chapel, but Emma's stomach churned with a quiet unease she couldn't explain. Daniel kissed her on the cheek, whispering, "You look perfect." His voice was soft, yet it carried a weight she couldn't place. The reception was set in the sprawling garden outside the chapel. Twinkling fairy lights hung from trees, and tables were adorned with candles and white silk cloths. Laughter rang out as guests mingled, champagne flutes clinking. Everything should have felt magical, yet Emma felt as if invisible eyes were watching. Then it happened, the first unsettling moment. Daniel disappeared for several minutes, slipping behind the tall hedges near the garden's edge. When he returned, he smiled, but there was something off, a slight tremor in his hands, a distant look in his eyes. Emma's friends noticed it too, whispering to each other about how tense he seemed. Emma tried to ignore it, focusing on the celebration. She danced, laughed, and hugged friends and family, yet a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. She didn't know what it was, but something in the air felt wrong. As the evening progressed, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. Music floated across the garden. Emma excused herself to freshen up in a small powder room tucked near the back of the hall. The room was quiet, a soft lull in the chaos outside. Her phone buzzed. A text. She frowned. Daniel had sent a message. "Don't worry if I'm not there immediately. Trust me." Emma's heart skipped. Trust him. Something about the wording felt strange, almost chilling. She typed a quick reply. "Are you okay?" But the message seemed to vanish into the ether before she could send it. Returning to the celebration, Emma noticed Daniel speaking with a man she didn't recognize, his voice low and hurried. Their conversation ended abruptly when Daniel saw her. He smiled, but this time it felt forced, tight. Emma tried to shake off the creeping unease. "I'm imagining things," she told herself. Dinner was served, toasts were made, and the couple cut the cake. Yet every glance at Daniel heightened her anxiety. He was polite, charming, attentive, yet there were gaps in his attention, moments when his mind seemed elsewhere. Emma began to notice small inconsistencies, his eyes darting to a corner of the garden, a whisper to the wedding planner that she couldn't hear, hands fumbling nervously with his cufflinks. The first real alarm sounded just after dessert. Emma excused herself to step outside for fresh air. The garden was quiet under the soft glow of the fairy lights. She wandered near the fountain, letting the cool night air calm her. Then she heard it. A rustle, a faint footstep behind her. "Daniel," she called softly, turning. Nothing. A sudden chill ran down her spine. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. This one, "It's time. You need to stay calm." Emma froze. She spun around, heart pounding, scanning the garden. Shadows danced in the soft light. Panic clawed at her chest. She ran back to the reception hall, but the doors were locked, the windows barred. Inside, the guests were still mingling. Daniel was nowhere to be seen. Emma's bridesmaids rushed to her side, their expressions turning from joy to concern. "Emma, what's wrong?" Lily asked. I don't know. Daniel's gone," Emma stammered. Guests murmured in confusion. Waiters checked the surrounding areas. No Daniel. Panic spread like wildfire. Then Emma realized the unthinkable. She herself was alone for a moment. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the music, it all felt distant, almost unreal. She heard a faint click behind her and spun around. A door at the far end of the hall creaked open. No one was there. She ran to it, yanking it wide, but it led only to the empty garden, shadows stretching ominously under the fairy lights. Suddenly, Emma's phone rang. She picked up with trembling hands. The screen displayed Daniel's name. "Emma," he said, his voice eerily calm. "Everything's fine. You just need to stay where you are." Her blood ran cold. "Daniel, what's happening? Where are you?" No answer, just silence. Then the line went dead. Emma's mind raced. This wasn't anxiety. This wasn't stress. Something terrible had happened. The perfect day, the wedding of her dreams was unraveling, thread by thread. And for the first time, she realized the man she trusted, the man she loved, might be hiding a terrifying truth. The first part ends with Emma standing alone under the soft glow of the garden lights, heart hammering, realizing that tonight, her wedding night, was only the beginning of a nightmare, and somewhere in the shadows, Daniel was watching. Detective Harper arrived at the wedding venue just as the sun dipped low over the horizon, the sky painted in bruised purples and oranges. The air was heavy with confusion, fear, and whispered rumors. Guests clustered in small groups, their faces pale, eyes darting. Chairs had toppled in the chaos, spilled champagne glimmered in the fading light, and the once perfect garden looked like a battlefield of shattered celebrations. Harper, a seasoned detective with sharp instincts, immediately zeroed in on Daniel Lawson. The groom sat quietly at a corner table, a hand covering his mouth as he stared at the scattered remnants of the reception. There was no sobbing, no frantic pacing, just a stillness that made Harper's gut tighten. "Mr. Lawson," Harper began, his voice calm but firm, "can you tell me exactly what happened when your wife disappeared?" Daniel looked up, his expression composed, almost too composed. I don't know," he stammered. She stepped out to get some fresh air. I followed a moment later and she wasn't there. I've searched everywhere. I don't understand." Harper steadied him carefully. Something about Daniel's demeanor didn't fit the panic of a man whose bride had vanished. He made a mental note to check every alibi, every interaction, every hidden corner of the venue. Meanwhile, the search for Emma had already begun. Officers combed the surrounding woods, the riverbanks, and the long driveways leading to the estate. Harper paused near a toppled white chair, examining the ground. Small footprints in the mud suggested someone had been led or dragged toward the woods. Harper's brow furrowed. Inside, whispers of secrets began to surface. Emma's friends spoke of strange messages she had received in the weeks leading up to the wedding. Some were innocent seeming, flirty jokes, cryptic comments, but others carried subtle threats. Be careful who you trust. Her closest friends insisted they had noticed Daniel's occasional absences, his phone calls that never seemed to end, his sudden mood swings. Meanwhile, Emma's own reality was far from the chaos outside. She awoke in a dimly lit room, the faint smell of damp wood and old furniture filling her nose. Her wrists were bound with rough rope, and panic surged through her chest. Slowly, carefully, she tried to remember the last moments before she blacked out. The garden, the strange text, Daniel's calm voice telling her to stay calm. Her mind raced. Why? Why would Daniel do this? The room itself was small, windowless, and claustrophobic. A single flickering light bulb overhead cast shadows that danced across the walls. Emma's heart pounded in her ears. She tried to move, but the ropes bit into her skin. She needed to think. She needed a plan. Outside, Harper and his team uncovered something chilling, a torn piece of a white dress caught on a thorny bush near the riverbank. It was unmistakably part of Emma's gown. Harper felt a jolt of urgency. "She's not far," he muttered, eyes scanning the shadowed trees, "but someone is keeping her close and careful." Back in the hidden room, Emma's fear slowly shifted into determination. She searched the floor with her eyes, looking for anything, sharp edges, loose nails, anything she could use to cut herself free. Then her gaze fell on the edge of the wooden crate near the wall. A small, jagged nail protruded. Carefully, she maneuvered her wrists, scraping against it until the rope frayed enough to give her some movement. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Emma's thoughts raced. She needed to understand why Daniel had done this. Her mind flashed to the cryptic texts, his phone calls, the strange men he'd met before the wedding. There had to be a reason, some dark truth he had hidden. Meanwhile, Harper's investigation began to unravel Daniel's carefully constructed facade. Daniel's financial records showed sudden withdrawals, unexplained transfers, and a history of deceptive behavior. Previous women in his life had vanished under mysterious circumstances. Friends whispered of broken engagements and untraceable trips. Harper's instincts screamed Daniel Lawson wasn't just a panicked groom, he was dangerous. Hours passed, and Emma worked silently, her mind calculating each move. The door to her room was old, its lock simple but sturdy. Outside, she could hear faint voices, footsteps, distant murmurs, the creak of a door. Every sound tightened the knot of anxiety in her chest. She had to act, but one wrong move could alert Daniel. At the same time, Harper's team discovered something that sent a chill through the detective. Security footage from nearby roads showed a black SUV leaving the venue shortly after Emma vanished, driven by a man resembling Daniel, with another figure sitting quietly in the back, almost certainly Emma. The timeline was tight. Daniel had acted immediately, and Harper realized the kidnapping had been planned meticulously. Emma, in the hidden room, finally freed one hand. She tested her movement, listening carefully. The floorboards creaked slightly underfoot, and she froze. A shadow passed under the doorway. Her heart jumped. Daniel, or one of his accomplices. She swallowed her fear, pressing herself into a dark corner. The figure moved on. Adrenaline surged. Emma realized she had only one chance. She grabbed the jagged edge of the crate, slicing the rope further. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she worked quickly, each second feeling like a lifetime. At last, she managed to free her hands completely. Outside, Harper coordinated a massive search. Officers combed the woods, checked nearby roads, and questioned terrified neighbors. One elderly man mentioned seeing a large, dark vehicle moving at unusual speed late in the evening. Another recalled a man carrying a heavy bag near the river. Harper's pulse quickened. The pieces were coming together. Emma, heart pounding, tested the door. It creaked, but it gave way. She slipped into the hall outside, careful to remain unseen. Her mind raced. I need to leave. I need to survive. I need Harper. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the far wall of the hall. Emma froze, recognizing the familiar outline of Daniel. His face was partially illuminated by a faint light, smiling, calm. terrifyingly composed. "Emma," he said softly, "don't make this harder than it needs to be." Her stomach dropped. This was her moment. She had to move. One slip, one sound, and it could all be over. But she had a clue, one small thing Harper could use, a torn piece of her veil she had tucked into her pocket, a silent message to anyone searching. Daniel stepped closer, and Emma bolted, darting past him through the shadows. She ran, heart hammering, lungs burning, desperate to find an exit. Her mind was focused on one thought: survive. Outside, the garden was quiet now, eerily so. Harper's team had moved further down the property, searching systematically. Emma's only hope was to get to the edge of the woods where she might be spotted, where help might reach her. As she neared the tree line, a sharp branch scraped her cheek. She winced but kept running. Behind her, she heard Daniel curse softly. He had noticed her escape. Fear mixed with determination surged through her. She knew he wouldn't stop easily, but neither would she. And then, a faint sound, a voice calling from the distance. "Emma! Emma!" Harper's team had finally arrived near the perimeter. Relief and hope flooded her, giving her strength to push forward. Emma stumbled into the open, breathless, scratched, but alive. Harper reached her first, wrapping a protective arm around her shoulders as officers surrounded the area. Daniel's figure loomed in the distance, fury and disbelief on his face as he realized she had slipped through his plan. For a moment, silence fell, the kind that carries the weight of unsaid horrors. Emma, shaken but alive, realized the terrifying truth. The man she had trusted, the man she had planned to spend her life with, had hidden a darkness she had never imagined. And now, with Harper on her side, the real investigation, the search for answers, for justice, was only just beginning. The night after Emma's escape was restless. She sat in the back of the police SUV, blanket draped over her shoulders, hands still trembling from adrenaline and fear. The garden, once a place of celebration, now haunted her, its beauty shattered, replaced by the memory of Daniel's calm, terrifying smile as she ran. Detective Harper drove in silence, eyes forward, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to understand what we're dealing with," Harper said finally, breaking the quiet. "Daniel Lawson isn't just a jealous groom or a panic-stricken man. He planned this. He's dangerous, and we have to be careful." Emma swallowed hard, voice barely above a whisper. Why would he do this? He loved me, didn't he?" Detective Harper glanced at her, a shadow of sadness in his eyes. "Sometimes, Emma, love isn't the only reason people do terrible things. Sometimes it's control, greed, obsession." Emma shivered. The words rang chillingly true. She remembered the cryptic texts, the secretive phone calls, the strange men Daniel had met before the wedding. Something in the back of her mind told her this was only the tip of the iceberg. Meanwhile, the investigation intensified. Harper and his team began digging into Daniel's life, uncovering a meticulous web of deception. His financial records were a mess of unexplained withdrawals, transfers, and accounts registered under fake names. A previous engagement had ended suddenly, the woman disappearing from friends' lives with no explanation. The neighbors whispered of strange trips, dark nights when Daniel returned home alone, carrying heavy, unidentifiable packages. Harper felt a chill as he pieced it together. "He's done this before," he murmured to his partner, Officer Jennings. "Emma's lucky to be alive." Emma, determined not to be a victim, insisted on helping Harper. She recounted every detail she could remember: the hidden room, the small crack in the wall through which she had glimpsed Daniel's schematics, the faint smell of wood and old rope, the way he had left subtle clues only she could recognize. Harper listened carefully, realizing that Emma's sharp mind and courage had given them the first real lead. "The room. Show me everything you remember," Harper instructed. Emma described the layout, the furniture, the single flickering bulb. Harper's team traced Daniel's known properties, focusing on places he had access to that matched Emma's description. They discovered a small abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, perfectly isolated, with no cameras and easy access to nearby roads. It was Daniel's lair. That night, Harper led a small team to the warehouse. Emma, despite the trauma, insisted on coming along. She needed to see, to confront, to understand. As they approached, the warehouse loomed like a dark sentinel in the empty night. Its windows were dusty, its doors locked and rusted. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the faintest creak of metal echoed through the silent grounds. Harper gestured to Emma to stay behind a stack of crates as he pried open the door. Inside, the scene was horrifying. Walls lined with photographs of Emma and other women, detailed notes tracking their routines, obsessive plans for control, and an array of tools used for restraint and manipulation. Every corner spoke of meticulous calculation and dark obsession. Emma's stomach turned. She had glimpsed his darkness before, but seeing it laid bare was something else entirely. This wasn't just control or greed. This was obsession, meticulously planned, methodical, and terrifying. She noticed something chilling. Daniel had even documented ways to stage disappearances, including timing escape routes, manipulating witnesses, and creating false alibis. Her heart raced as she realized how narrowly she had escaped. Back in the warehouse, Harper's team began cataloging evidence, but Emma couldn't stop thinking about the clues she had left behind. The small piece of veil tucked in her pocket, the subtle scratches she had left on the ropes. Each one was a breadcrumb, a chance to ensure justice. She felt a surge of determination. Harper noticed her resolve. "Emma," he said gently, "you were incredibly brave. You need to tell me everything you remember about his habits, his routines. Anything, no matter how small, could help us catch him before he disappears again." Emma nodded, recounting the little details, the way Daniel checked the locks obsessively, the hidden compartments in his study, the timing of his trips, and the faint scent of certain chemicals he had used to clean areas after his so-called disappearances. Harper's mind raced. He's careful, but no one is perfect. He's left enough traces for us to catch him. Meanwhile, Daniel had realized the net was tightening. From a safe distance, he monitored the police investigation through hidden cameras he had installed in his properties, unaware that Harper had already discovered one of them and had been tracking his movements. Panic began to seep in, replacing the cold, calm facade he had maintained. Emma, however, wasn't content to wait. Using her knowledge of Daniel's obsession with control, she began piecing together a small plan. A loose floorboard in the warehouse, a metal rod from an old shelf, and a series of timed distractions orchestrated by Harper's team could be enough to trap him. Every second was critical. Daniel would not hesitate to act if he discovered she was alive. The night stretched on, each movement taut with tension. Emma crawled silently through the shadows of the warehouse, her mind focused, ears straining for any sound of movement. Harper's team waited outside, radios crackling softly, ready to move at the first sign of action. And then it happened. A shadow moved across the floor above her. Daniel had returned, checking for any sign of escape. His footsteps echoed ominously, each one a reminder of the danger she was in. Emma froze, pressed against the cold concrete, her heart hammering in her chest. One wrong move could cost her everything. But she was ready. She remembered the subtle scratches she had left on the ropes, the small clues, the pattern of Daniel's obsession. Using a swift, calculated movement, she triggered a small distraction. A loose beam fell with a sharp crash, drawing Daniel's attention. Harper and his team moved immediately, surrounding the warehouse, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Daniel realized too late that the trap had been set. The walls of his carefully constructed world were closing in. Emma stepped out of the shadows, calm now, determined, and facing the man who had nearly destroyed her life. The cliffhanger ending of part 3. Daniel's face twisted in disbelief and fury. He had underestimated Emma's resilience and Harper's relentless pursuit. The final confrontation loomed, one that would test courage, wit, and survival instincts to the absolute limit. The abandoned warehouse loomed in the darkness, its walls silent witnesses to years of Daniel Lawson's obsessive planning. The night was thick with tension. The only sounds were the soft crunch of gravel under Harper's boots and the distant hum of city lights. Emma crouched behind a stack of crates, her hands steady now, though her heart still raced. Tonight would end one way or another. Harper signaled to his team. The plan was precise: contain Daniel, keep Emma safe, and move quickly. They knew Daniel's mind well enough by now. He was calculating, dangerous, and unpredictable. But they also knew his overconfidence could be exploited. Inside the warehouse, Daniel moved like a predator, unaware that the net was closing around him. His eyes scanned the shadows, expecting Emma to be cowering somewhere, trembling. Instead, he found empty crates, the faintest trail of movement, and the unsettling realization that something had changed. Suddenly, a metallic clang echoed through the warehouse, a deliberate distraction set by Emma. Daniel's head snapped toward the sound. Harper's team pressed closer, hiding in the shadows, ready to spring into action. Emma took a deep breath and stepped into the open, forcing Daniel to focus entirely on her. "You shouldn't have underestimated me," she said, her voice calm but icy. Daniel's expression twisted, disbelief and rage flashing across his face. You're supposed to be terrified," he hissed. "You're supposed to be nothing." Emma held her ground. "I'm not nothing, and you're done, Daniel." Harper's team moved in as Daniel lunged toward her, a wild desperation in his movements. The officers grabbed him, but he fought with shocking strength. The struggle was brief but tense, each second dragging the audience into the chaos. Harper shouted commands, and the trained team quickly subdued Daniel, restraining him with cuffs and ropes. Irony not lost on Emma. As Daniel struggled, he screamed, revealing more than just anger. He ranted about past disappearances, about control, about starting fresh with Emma. His voice cracked under pressure, each word painting the portrait of a man completely consumed by obsession. Emma stepped back, shivering not from fear, but from the intensity of watching the man she had trusted unravel completely. She realized the full scope of Daniel's plans. He had not just intended to kidnap her. He had documented multiple women, tracing their lives, studying their routines, and plotting escapes that only he could control. He was a predator who had perfected his facade of charm and normalcy. Harper approached Emma gently. "Are you okay?" Emma nodded, tears brimming but unshed. I think so. But how could someone hide this from everyone? How could he—" Her voice broke. Harper placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Some people are good at hiding darkness," he said softly. "But tonight, that darkness ends." The officers led Daniel out of the warehouse, his protests echoing into the night. News crews would soon report on his capture, his past crimes exposed, his carefully constructed lies crumbling. Emma watched, a mixture of relief and lingering horror washing over her. But the night wasn't over yet. Harper knew Daniel's network of deception ran deeper. There were financial trails to follow, acquaintances to question, and the possibility of other victims. Emma, exhausted but resolute, insisted she would testify, ensuring that Daniel's obsession could no longer harm anyone. Back at the police station, Harper and Emma reviewed the evidence. Photographs, notes, messages, and the meticulous layout of Daniel's warehouse, all proof of his calculated planning. Harper filed the most damning of evidence, the hidden camera footage, the correspondence tracking Emma and other women, and Daniel's financial manipulations. Each piece told the same story, a man who had been living a double life, plotting evil under the guise of a perfect life. Emma's relief was tempered by reflection. She thought of the wedding, the laughter, the joy, the sense of a perfect day, and she thought of the terrifying reality hidden behind Daniel's smile. She realized how easily trust could be weaponized, how appearances could deceive, and how close she had come to losing everything. Weeks later, the trial began. Daniel sat in the courtroom, his confident demeanor shattered. Prosecutors presented the overwhelming evidence, the warehouse, the photographs, the notes, the digital trails. Witnesses spoke, detailing his suspicious past, and Emma's testimony painted a chilling portrait of his manipulation and obsession. The jury listened horrified. The story of the vanishing bride captured the nation's attention. Daniel's crimes were extensive, and the careful planning that had once made him nearly untouchable now worked against him. Every lie he had spun, every secret he had hidden, unraveled under the weight of truth. Emma watched silently from the witness stand, her heart steady now, her courage unwavering. She had survived, she had fought, and she had helped bring justice. And though the emotional scars remained, so did a sense of triumph. Daniel's reign of control had ended. The verdict came swiftly, guilty on all counts: kidnapping, fraud, attempted murder, and a host of related charges. Daniel's sentencing ensured he would never harm another soul. Harper watched quietly, proud of Emma's resilience and determination. Justice, though delayed by years of deception, had finally been served. The story closed on Emma returning home, her life irrevocably changed, but her spirit unbroken. The garden where her wedding had been held was now a distant memory, a place of both joy and terror. She reflected on betrayal, resilience, and the shocking truth that evil often hides behind the most charming facades. She had been the vanishing bride, but now she was a survivor, a woman who had faced terror, outsmarted it, and lived to tell the tale. And though the scars remained, so did the lesson. Vigilance, courage, and the refusal to be silenced could triumph over even the darkest deception. The story closed on Emma standing in the sunlight, looking toward a future she would now shape for herself. Daniel Lawson was behind bars, the secrets he had hidden laid bare, and though the memory of the night she vanished would never fully fade, Emma had reclaimed her life, stronger and wiser than before.